Brandon Curry is one of the most important names in modern bodybuilding, competing in the open bodybuilding division of the IFBB Pro League, the highest level the sport has to offer. When you talk about athletes who truly made it to the very top, his name always comes up. Born on October 19, 1982, in Nashville, Tennessee, Brandon built his journey far from the spotlight in the early years. Unlike athletes who explode onto the scene as instant sensations, his career was shaped by steady progress, patience, and real competitive maturity. Over the years, he earned nicknames that perfectly reflect his presence on stage. The Prodigy highlighted the promise he showed early on, while the Beefcake came later, representing his massive muscle volume and the dense, powerful look that became his trademark. Those names didn't come out of nowhere. They marked different phases of his evolution as an athlete. The ultimate turning point came in 2019, when Brandon Curry won the Mr. Olympia title, the biggest trophy in bodybuilding. With that victory, he became the 15th athlete in history to achieve this feat, officially joining an elite group that shaped generations and redefined physical standards in the sport. And before we dive into the incredible story of this athlete, make sure to hit that like button. No delays, let's get to what really matters. Brandon Curry grew up in an environment where movement was part of everyday life. Physical activity was encouraged at home from a very young age, not as a chore, but as something natural. That detail may seem small, but it helped build a solid athletic foundation long before any stage or trophy was even on the horizon. The first real spark happened when he was just 6 years old, after receiving a pair of dumbbells as a gift. From that moment on, training stopped being just play and started to spark curiosity. He began repeating movements at home, testing his own body, and realizing, without even knowing it yet, that he had a natural connection with strength training. As a teenager, Brandon explored several sports. He tried gymnastics, wrestling, track and field, and even American football. Each one contributed something different: coordination, explosiveness, endurance, and strength. Outside the fields and gyms, his inspiration came from pop culture. Characters like Rocky Balboa, Rambo, and the G.I. Joe heroes fueled his imagination with ideas of strength, discipline, and resilience. Those influences shaped the ideal he wanted to reach, not just looking strong, but truly becoming strong. As an adult, he decided to turn that passion into knowledge. He studied exercise science at Middle Tennessee State University, diving deep into training principles and nutrition. Before stepping onto professional bodybuilding stages, he worked as a personal trainer, learning firsthand how the human body responds to hard work and physical stress. Brandon Curry officially entered the competition scene in 2003, and right from his debut, it was clear he wasn't just another name trying to break through. In his very first appearance, he won the Supernatural Bodybuilding Show, a strong start that showed promise, even though it didn't yet hint at how far he would eventually go. In the years that followed, Brandon stayed in the amateur ranks, focusing on something that often gets overlooked: consistent improvement. Instead of rushing his career, he took his time refining his physique, fixing weak points, and maturing as a competitor. The major breakthrough came in 2008, when Brandon won the NPC USA Championships. That victory didn't just earn him a title. It secured his long-awaited pro card, officially launching his professional bodybuilding career. From that point on, everything changed. Now, he would be standing face-to-face with the best physiques in the world. During this transition, Brandon added roughly 30 pounds of muscle, about 14 kilograms, to his frame. But it wasn't just about size. He gained muscle density, maturity, and a stronger stage presence. That kind of growth didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of discipline, fine-tuning, and smart, strategic decisions. In 2011, he made his debut on the biggest stage of all, the Mr. Olympia. Even in his very first appearance, Brandon Curry finished in impressive 8th place, proving he wasn't there just to learn. He was there to compete. After his Olympia debut, Brandon Curry entered a defining phase of his career. Between 2011 and 2017, he began competing regularly on the international circuit, going head-to-head with seasoned athletes and already established physiques. While many competitors struggle with ups and downs during this stage, Brandon stayed remarkably consistent. Show after show, his physique kept improving, More muscle density, sharper separation, and a balance that started to catch the judges' eyes. He wasn't the clear favorite yet, but he was no longer flying under the radar. That growing recognition turned into real results in 2013, when he won the Arnold Classic Brazil. That title carried weight because it proved Brandon could dominate major stages outside the United States. 2 years later, in 2015, he backed that up by winning the Toronto Pro Super Show, further solidifying his status as a top-tier competitor. The year 2017 was especially significant. Brandon won the Arnold Classic Australia, the New Zealand Pro, and the Ferrigno Legacy, 3 major titles in a single season. That run made one thing clear. He was no longer just a promising athlete. He was a competitor who could win consistently anywhere in the world. The year 2019 marked the absolute peak of Brandon Curry's journey. After years of quiet progress, smart adjustments, and physical maturity, everything finally clicked. His physique combined size, density, and balance at a level that put him squarely among the top favorites for the sport's biggest title. The first major confirmation came with his victory at the Arnold Classic. Known for having one of the strictest judging standards in bodybuilding, winning there means far more than just holding a trophy. With that result, Brandon stopped being seen as just a strong name on the circuit and became a serious contender for the Mr. Olympia crown that year. At the 2019 Mr. Olympia, Brandon stepped on stage against some of the most dangerous physiques of the modern era. Among them were William Bonac, famous for his extreme density, and Hadi Choopan, known for his insane conditioning. Even so, Brandon stood out round after round, delivering consistency in every pose. When the final result was announced, the impact was immediate. Brandon Curry had won the Mr. Olympia, taking the throne after Sean Roden's reign. It wasn't a controversial win or one based on a single strong point. It was a victory built on the complete package he brought to the stage that night. With that title, Brandon officially cemented his place in bodybuilding history. He was no longer just an elite competitor. He had joined the exclusive club of Olympia champions. Winning the Mr. Olympia is the ultimate dream for any bodybuilder, but staying among the best afterward is an even bigger challenge. After his historic 2019 win, Brandon returned to the stage in 2020 carrying the pressure of being the man to beat. He finished with a strong second place, just behind Mamdouh Elsbieh, better known as Big Ramy, who brought an almost unreal level of mass. In 2021, Brandon proved the previous year was no fluke. Once again, he placed second at the Olympia, holding his ground at the very top in an extremely competitive era. Very few athletes can maintain that level for 2 consecutive years, especially in a contest where every detail is judged without mercy. By 2022, the landscape began to shift. Brandon finished 4th at the Mr. Olympia, but made up for that relative drop with a major achievement, winning the Arnold Classic once again. In the years that followed, Brandon remained competitive. In 2023, he returned to a 4th-place finish at the Olympia. In 2024, he placed 9th, and in 2025, he finished 7th. While those results aren't podium spots, they highlight something rare in modern bodybuilding: longevity. Staying among the top 10 physiques in the world for so many consecutive years is no small feat. When we talk about bodybuilding at the highest level, numbers help put what we see on stage into perspective. Brandon Curry stands 5 feet 8 inches tall, about 1.73 meters. At first glance, that height might not seem imposing, but that's exactly where the surprise begins. How does someone of that stature manage to go toe-to-toe with athletes who are significantly taller? In contest shape, Brandon steps on stage weighing around 255 pounds, which is roughly 116 kilograms. That weight isn't just raw size, it's extremely dense, well-distributed muscle. Every pound matters, every detail is dialed in, and nothing is there by accident. It's the kind of physique that looks just as impressive up close as it does from the back of the venue. During the off-season, his body weight can climb to about 265 pounds, or around 120 kilograms. That extra mass gives him room to bring up weak points, add muscle thickness, and set the foundation for future contest preps. Visually, Brandon's physique is defined by wide shoulders that create a powerful upper line on stage, dense lats that expand his frame from both the front and the back, and very strong hamstrings. an important edge in direct comparisons. Brandon's training routine reflects exactly who he is as an athlete: strategic, disciplined, and smart. Instead of following rigid formulas, he trains 4 to 5 days per week, adjusting frequency based on how well his body is recovering. At the core of his philosophy is the balance between hypertrophy and strength. Brandon understands that simply lifting heavy weights isn't enough, just as training only for volume doesn't guarantee muscle density. By blending these two stimuli throughout the week, he builds muscles that are big, strong, and visually impactful on stage. His training split follows a simple but effective logic. On hypertrophy-focused days, the emphasis is on controlled movement, higher volume, and strong, deliberate contractions. On strength days, the focus shifts to heavier loads, lower reps, and longer rest periods. This alternation helps prevent plateaus and keeps the body constantly adapting. A classic example of his weekly structure includes chest, back, and shoulders on Monday with a hypertrophy focus, while legs and arms are trained on Tuesday with an emphasis on strength. After a rest day, he hits the same muscle groups again, but flips the stimulus. This setup allows him to train the entire body effectively without overloading the nervous system. Most weekends are usually reserved for recovery. Behind Brandon's impressive physique is a well-planned arsenal of techniques, applied with purpose and at the right time. He doesn't train randomly. Every method he uses has a clear role: to create new stimuli and keep progress coming, even after years at the highest level of bodybuilding. One technique he uses frequently is the 1.5 rep, also known as a double contraction. In this method, part of the movement is repeated before completing the full rep, increasing time under tension and overall intensity. It's an efficient way to fully fatigue the muscle without necessarily adding more weight, especially useful during refinement phases. Another key strategy is rest-pause sets. Here, Brandon breaks a set into smaller clusters with very short breaks in between, using the same weight from start to finish. This technique pushes the muscle into extreme fatigue, forcing new adaptations. On strength-focused days, he applies wave loading, a wave-style progression that alternates weight and reps within the same workout. This approach allows him to train maximal strength without excessive wear and tear, while keeping the nervous system highly stimulated. Despite all these technical variations, Brandon still builds his foundation around classic compound lifts: the bench press, squat, and deadlift. He believes in progressive overload, mainly through increased intensity, and avoids using lifting straps whenever possible. Within such a complete physique, Brandon Curry has always been open about having favorite muscle groups, and that's no coincidence. His back and hamstrings are the areas he feels most connected to during training, and they're also where his physique tends to make the biggest impact in onstage comparisons. His back, in particular, is one of his biggest calling cards. Density, width, and thickness come together to create a dominant silhouette, both in front poses and rear shots. When it comes to hamstrings, that's another major technical advantage. At the highest level, a lot of physiques look incredible from the front, but lose ground the moment they turn around. Brandon doesn't. His hamstrings hold up under scrutiny, and that matters a lot on a pro stage. Some of the exercises he values the most include the deadlift, T-bar row, pull-ups, and the lying leg curl. These are movements that demand control, real strength, and a strong mind-muscle connection. No shortcuts, just hard, honest work. To maintain a physique at Brandon's level, training is only part of the equation. The real foundation is nutrition, and he takes it just as seriously as heavy lifting. On average, he eats 6 to 8 meals a day, keeping a steady flow of energy and nutrients throughout the entire day. His diet structure is simple, practical, and extremely consistent. Lean meats, eggs, rice, oats, sweet potatoes, along with fruits, vegetables, and nuts make up the core of his nutrition plan. No crazy gimmicks. The focus is on foods that deliver results, are easy to digest, and allow for precise adjustments depending on the phase of prep. Even with all that discipline, Brandon never lived under absolute restriction. Cheat meals show up from time to time, usually involving sweets and chocolate. These moments help not just mentally, but also with long-term consistency and adherence. When it comes to supplements, Brandon sticks to the basics and does them right. Protein powder to help meet daily intake, pre-workout for energy and focus, ZMA, and a multivitamin for overall health support. In specific phases, he also uses fat burners, always in a controlled and strategic way. Behind the physique and the trophies, Brandon Curry has built a life that goes far beyond the stage. Away from the bright lights of the Mr. Olympia, he's a family man, married to Brandy Lever and a father of 4. That personal side plays a huge role in his journey and helps explain his mature attitude, both in and out of competition. Brandon splits his time between Nashville, where it all began, and California, one of the global hubs of bodybuilding. That balance says a lot about his life, staying connected to his roots and family while also being close to the highest level of the sport. Mentally, Brandon has always made it clear that success doesn't come from the physique alone. He believes in focus, discipline, and above all, mental resilience. In a sport where public losses are part of the game, the ability to keep moving forward is often what separates those who last from those who fade away. One interesting part of his mindset is how he views obstacles. To Brandon, challenges aren't signs of failure. They're signals that something bigger may be ahead. Criticism, pressure, and moments of doubt are all part of the journey. The key is not letting them control your direction. Brandon Curry's story isn't about an overnight sensation. It's about an athlete who reached the top through years of consistency, smart adjustments, and patience. In a sport where many look for shortcuts, Brandon built his career step by step, proving that real progress takes time. He represents, like few others, the blend of classic aesthetics with modern mass. Brandon was never just the biggest guy on stage, nor only the most aesthetic. His real edge has always been balance, clean lines, harmonious proportions, and enough size to compete in the era of giants. A physique that connects bodybuilding's past and present at the same time. For athletes dreaming of a long career, Brandon has become a clear reference point. He proved that it's possible to stay relevant for many years, even after reaching the very top. Instead of disappearing after his title, he stayed competitive, adapting to the sport's evolution and the new physical standards demanded each season. The Mr. Olympia title doesn't represent just a single win. It marks the completion of a cycle built on persistence, technical growth, and competitive maturity. The journey you've just followed shows that success rarely happens overnight. Brandon Curry didn't win just because of genetics, size, or luck. He won because he stayed the course when many quit, adjusted his path when needed, and trusted the process even when results took time to show up. And that's a lesson that goes far beyond bodybuilding. If this story inspired you in any way, whether in training, in life, or in how you face challenges, hit that like button right now.